Hello and welcome to IGN. I'm Daniel Krupa, this is Alex Simmons.
Hello.
Now, we've both gone hands-on with Grand Theft Auto 5 ahead of its September 17th release date, so we thought we'd just share our first impressions of visiting Los Santos.
Yes, so obviously it's the first time that we've ever been hands-on with GTA 5, and I think the first thing was, excitement. Let's not,
Yeah.
It was very exciting. We were dropped in the
It's
middle
out in a couple of weeks and nobody's played it.
No. So far, well, I've seen an hours of the game. You've seen probably, around the same.
Bits here and there.
So we got to play the game for about 3 to 4 hours. We saw 4 different missions, I think it was. But more importantly, we just hung out in the city to see what there was to do, check out some of the, just countless things to do. I think so. Obviously, the first thing you always do when you're in a GTA game is raise your wanted level.
Well, you want to be a badass right from the get-go.
Yeah.
So how did you go about achieving that kind of maximum wanted level?
Well, so luckily Rockstar gave me every single weapon in the game. We'll talk about weapons in a short while. So I stood on a street corner, and the first thing to note is that I thought it looked beautiful. Like, GTA 4 when that came out, that looked great, but this looks like a next step up. There's more stuff happening. More cars, more variety, and the city just feels more alive. And again, it was a debug version of the game, which means it was pre-production, so they cycled through the day and night cycles so you could see what it looked like at different times, and it just looked gorgeous. But anyway, back to the wanted rating. So I got a rocket launcher, and I waited for the first police car to turn up.
You were in downtown. You were near a shopping district.
Yeah, but it wasn't like high rises. It was just kind of I guess that area between suburbia and downtown. So it was pretty busy, but lots of stuff going on. And then so fired off the rocket launcher. Same thing, like a little tail of smoke coming out, and then boom, like huge explosion, and then it all kicks off. So surprisingly, 1 cop, 1 rocket launcher, only 1 star.
Yeah.
But very quickly,
escalated, didn't it?
Because I switched between rocket launcher and machine gun. 3 stars, helicopter came up, and so I was shooting the guy out the helicopter with the rocket launcher, and he sort of fell out of the sky.
And you switched
tumbled
with
to the
Gatling
ground.
gun or a grenade launcher after that?
I started off with an M60 style heavy assault rifle, and then a grenade launcher, and I think I got up to 5 stars, and then I was dead.
Okay. Well, I didn't get as far as you, but I went just driving around using a lot of the weapons. You can use pretty much most of your weapons while in a car.
Yeah.
So I started just driving around, popping out grenades through the window, which was pretty cool because I was switching to the camera looking behind me, and I could see them just slowly blowing up in the distance.
Yeah.
And I remember one time I dropped a grenade out the window and waited at an intersection, and it blew up, and this car came just sliding down the hill, all inflamed.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the way it kind of crashed through the intersection was incredible.
Like the cause and effect feels way more advanced than it did in GTA.
But and that's the thing,
GTA 4.
because it's open world, you can create all these effects that you might never see. Because if you go around the corner, you're not going to see it. But that stuff is still happening, even though you're not there to witness it.
Well, that's it. Another bit, helicopters. Anyone who listens to the podcast knows I'm a massive helicopter geek. So I took a helicopter, flew it right up in the sky, and then parachuted out and down into the city. But if you parachute down, you keep an eye on the helicopter, you'll see it fall out the sky and slowly, spiral down.
And then
it
gets into
explode.
like a nose spin, and just plummets to the earth.
Exactly.
And you can see a big jet plume of smoke in the distance.
Yeah.
It's like if a helicopter crashes in the city and you're not there to witness it, it still happens.
And that's it. And you can parachute all the way down and find the wreckage of the helicopter there, which is insane at that kind of level of detail. But so the first impressions are amazing city, amazing scope. But I think for me, the kind of bugbears with GTA 4, combat was a little bit loose and driving. So, let's tackle combat first. So,
well, I think the important thing to learn about combat, even though this is GTA 4 and GTA 5 and it's the successor to 4, Rockstar produced quite a few games in between those two titles.
Yeah.
And there's definitely elements. I'm a huge Red Dead Redemption fan, and I really like Max Payne 3. I reviewed it for the site, and GTA 5's definitely learned a lot in terms of combat through those 2 games. So like Red Dead, you've got a weapon wheel and you can cycle through each slot. If you're familiar with Red Dead, you'll be very familiar with GTA's weapon system. You can cycle through all your weapons, and there's kind of other weapons, other items that you can use as part of that weapon wheel. So in one mission, at the end of the mission, I had to dispose of my car. And in my weapon wheel, I had a contextual item, which was a jerry can. So I just parked the car up, need to get rid of it. Just covered it in gasoline, walked away from it, and fired a bullet at the ground, and it just caught flame and it exploded while I walked away in the distance, which felt pretty badass. But then, as I was walking down the hill, a fire engine started appearing, which was impressive because the mission had effectively ended. But
you were just doing other stuff.
That's the best thing, because the mission ended, but what you did in the mission kind of spilled over into the persistent world. Like, you did a mission and it finished with Trevor in a helicopter.
Yes.
The mission ended and you switched back to Trevor and he was still in that helicopter flying back. It's not like the world resets after a mission.
Yeah, I thought that was really nice because, so I was playing as Michael, finished the mission, say goodbye to Trevor, off he flies. Literally popped back to see what he was doing. He was still flying the helicopter. But earlier, when I was during the demo, I was playing as Michael and just trying out the character switching. Went to Trevor, and he's in the middle of nowhere. But he's not just kind of sitting there doing nothing. He's got 2 police cars after him. He's got a 2-star wanted rating, and it's just these guys going about their business, which is really, really cool. It's, it feels like they've got actual personality and,
Well, it feels like they're real characters. They're not like puppets that you're just picking up and playing with when you want to switch to Trevor.
Yeah.
He's leading his own life. And that's the thing I thought was really cool, was when we sat down, the whole of the GTA 5 map is open to you right from the beginning. But there's still an element of discovery because it's blanketed in like kind of a fog of war if you play Civ, one of those kind of games. But what was great is, even though it's one map, because you play as 3 characters, all with very different kind of histories and social backgrounds.
Yeah, totally.
You see different aspects of the city, because Franklin will hang out with a certain type of crowd.
Yeah.
Trevor will be doing his own thing in like the wastelands, and then you've got Michael, who's kind of hangs out in like business districts, and there's a lot of people in suits. So you're inhabiting lots of different worlds that exist side by side.
Yeah. And again, we don't want to talk too much about some of the story that we saw, but there's definitely a different feel to them. But at the same time, you can feel it all coming together, and that's what I can't wait to see, is how these 3 very different people actually end up.
Well, they all get
working
even
together,
though they're very disparate characters with different kind of backgrounds. They all kind of get tangled and go on missions together. So I went on a very traditional kind of San Andreas style mission. It was kind of a gangbanging mission, and you went back to Grove Street. Went with Franklin, his friend Lamar. Lamar's dog Chop, which sometimes accompanies Franklin, and Trevor. Trevor came along because he just wanted to go to the hood and cause some trouble. It's Trevor. And that was really different because it took me to a different world that I didn't see when you were playing the mission with Michael. And it was cool going on the mission with Chop, actually, because he kind of, even though you don't control him, obviously, he's a little Rottweiler if you don't know, and he'll go around the map, kind of, if you're in combat situations, kind of distracting people, biting at their legs, sometimes giving you a tactical advantage.
Yeah, and again, they haven't really sort of spoken much about that stuff, but there seems to be a lot more variety in how you kind of tackle things. Like the mission that you were playing at the beginning, where Franklin's got a repo car with his mate Lamar, who's just like absolutely insane. Literally every other word is the F word. But
it's a lot of F-bombs.
There is a lot of F-bombs.
A lot of melon farmers as well.
But it just feels like, anything can kind of happen. And obviously you were chasing after the guy on the motorbike, but I think you rammed him down, but you can shoot him. It's always been a hallmark of GTA, but here it just feels like the city has got much more scope than it ever did before, which, I just can't wait. The other point to notice is obviously individual skills. It's the first time that we've seen those in action. So obviously Franklin has like bullet time for cars, so time slows down when he's driving. Michael has real bullet time, I guess you call it, and Trevor is just nuts.
Because Michael's like a gunman, he's a real weapon nerd. And Trevor is, what is it with Trevor? He does double the damage for a little time, but takes double the half the damage.
He takes half the damage, but delivers double the damage.
You can just go crazy, and sometimes gets you out of tight situations. But the thing that was interesting to me, actually playing the game, because I really like the idea of switching characters, but I wasn't really sure how much it was kind of dictated in kind of missions that weren't heists. In heists, there's very clear roles that each player plays, each character plays. So Trevor's a pilot.
We should point out that we didn't actually get to play a heist.
We didn't.
I think Rockstar is keeping that very much under wraps until the final game comes out.
But when playing a regular mission, like when I was back at Grove Street, I kind of thought the ability to switch character, could it possibly be a bit of a get out of jail card? So if you're taking heavy fire, you've lost a lot of your health, can you switch to another character and basically just flank people easily? It's not really true. You'll find if you switch to a character, they might be in difficulty already. It didn't feel unfair, it just felt kind of authentic, I guess. Well,
that's it. Because most of the time, there was the mission where you're busting Michael out of the meatpacking factory, but those 2 guys are in close proximity, and actually working together is important. And switching between Franklin, who had an automatic weapon, and Michael, who only had a pistol, you've got to figure out, who's the best for that kind of particular instance. I guess that was one thing. It prompts you quite a lot as to when to use which character at what time.
I think in highly
certainly
structured situations.
on missions, but that's because they're very, they're quite scripted.
And each character definitely has a distinct personality when you're playing them, just the way that they walk and they're kind of. Each character feels really solid, I think, and has like a very distinctive walk and feel to them.
Yeah.
But it's great. The missions that we played obviously probably represent the variety in the game.
Although you're kind of prompted as to which character to use when, there are times when there's more freedom. So, like, obviously we played the mission where you break out the target from the FIB tower. Now that's the mission that I saw in New York in October last year. Obviously I didn't go hands-on, but we did this time. And the thing that it demonstrated is that you've got Trevor up in the helicopter, who is dropping Michael down to make the extraction, and then Franklin is on another tower block sniping. Now, when you've actually got the guy in your possession, you're wheeling him back up. You can either play as Michael, like shooting from level with automatic pistol, or you can shoot as Franklin, taking guys out from afar. But then when you're actually making the escape, you can, again, play as Franklin to take out the helicopters that are in pursuit, or you can play as Michael, who leans out the back and shoots with this assault rifle.
So options then.
Or you can play as Trevor, who's actually piloting to get away. So, having three characters, I know the focus from Rockstar was to put you in the middle of the action, but it does feel true, but you've still got a lot of freedom over how you play the game.
And I guess that sort of stuff, even though we didn't get to play it, kind of scales to online,
Yeah.
where
Yeah,
different
yeah.
people will be inhabiting all those roles constantly, so you could just be the pilot.
Yeah.
How did you actually find flying the helicopter?
It's a little bit tricky to begin with, but that's because, if I'm honest with you, I haven't played a GTA game in a while, but once I got used to it, so we were playing like the little, well, in real life it's called the Hughes 500, I can't remember what it's called in GTA 5. But
You're such a helicopter.
I know I am, I'm sorry. But it's basically a little kind of army helicopter that's got machine guns. It looked like it had rocket pods, but I couldn't fire them. But yeah, it's so quite twitchy, but that's the whole point of learning the ability. The more you play around with these cars and weapons, etc., the better you get.
And just stuff happens, because you passed over the helicopter to me because you wanted me to like have a little go with the helicopter.
Yeah.
And I think you handed over to me as you were flying into restricted airSpace.
Yeah.
Over a prison. Immediately I had 2-star wanted level. So I quickly escaped. And I tried to fly up to the top of Mount Chiliad.
Yeah.
But it was
really
really
there's a shack up there.
What's
in the shack?
I want to see what the shack is.
Know.
And it was really difficult to land because of like crosswinds, but that's kind of realistic again. And
it was funny. So just like you landed on a hill.
It was embarrassing.
And surprisingly, you can't land a helicopter on a hill.
Yeah, it's not like Skyrim where you can just like ascend the mountain with a helicopter.
And then Trevor bailed out and then just tumbled to his death as he rolled down the hill.
Yeah, well, you kept doing that. You kept like getting out of cars too early, and like Trevor just like scraping his face. Yeah.
But what I did do, so I flew up as high as I possibly could in the helicopter, and it was at night, so we were looking over downtown. All the lights were sort of sparkling, and then just slowly parachuted down in between the skyscrapers. And it reminded me of like Batman in a couple of instances.
This is what I was going to say. Actually, in that scene, what I remember was really memorable, and actually throughout the game at key moments was not the kind of radio music. It was the score. This kind of dynamic score. And the thing that keeps reminding me of is the beginning of The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
When they're doing the bank job and the Joker's robbing the bank, and there's like really high-pitched piercing noise, and then it slowly builds. Like rhythmically, drums, percussion, bass, all this sort of stuff, and it has this kind of crescendo.
Yeah.
When you're like going into a chase or something, and it kind of just swells.
Yeah.
That's really kind of
it's
stirring.
really effective, and I think that's. I guess GTA 5 almost feels like a best of Rockstar experience because, as you say, you've got the dynamic events and things that they learned from Red Dead Redemption. The combat is, borrows some stuff from Max Payne. All the cutscenes as well. There's no kind of like distinct.
There's no
beginning
load screen.
and
That's
end.
from Max Payne 3. If you go up to a mission marker and you walk into, say, Franklin's workplace, it'll go straight into the cutscene and then straight out on the other side.
Yeah, but no cut. It literally is you're walking in and you're playing it, and then you're not playing it. But
it's very seamless,
fluid, and it works.
Which
really
kind
well.
of helps sells the whole open world thing. It's not, it's not parceled out to you.
Yeah. Now, the other pain point that people mentioned about GTA 4 was the driving, and they said the cars were too floaty. Now, obviously, we drove a lot of cars in GTA 5, sports cars. Well, you drove a hearse.
I drove a hearse. I tried to get away from the cops in a hearse, which it just doesn't work.
No. But it definitely feels tighter. It feels like the cars have got more weight, and importantly, there is a much bigger difference if you're driving something that's kind of light and nippy compared to something that's just like bulky and heavy.
I also think you have to be smart about which vehicle you pick. So if you want to get away and you want to go off-road, you know, pick a vehicle that suits that kind of terrain.
Yeah, exactly. Because when I was playing as Trevor and trying to get away as him, he was in his trademark pickup truck. So the first thing I did was went off-road, and the police interceptors had much more trouble going off-road than they did with me in the pickup truck. Actually, one thing we didn't mention was the way that the wanted system works, and that now the police cars have a kind of cone of vision.
Yeah.
So rather than it just being a wide area that they are alerted to if you're in that area, they've got a cone of vision, and so it's possible to escape down a back road or park up under a bridge and get away that way rather than just getting as far away as you can. And
it felt like, have you seen Drive? Ryan Gosling.
Yes,
It felt much more like that opening scene in Drive where Gosling's getting away, and instead of running, just outrunning the police, you use your smarts and you park up beneath a bridge, and you can kind of get out, get away with it that way.
Yeah. I think so. Obviously, we played 3 to 4 missions. It's a tiny fraction of what GTA 5 has got to offer, and I'd love to be able to talk more about what the game has got, but quite frankly, we won't know until we actually sit down and review the game.
Yeah, we basically scratched the surface. But my big takeaway was it actually works. The character switching works. And it's really really impressive.
Yeah.
The missions that we played, showed quite a lot of variety.
Yeah.
And I just want to spend more time in that world. Like all I want to do now is really explore it.
And I think even when you're not in the middle of a mission, there is so much more to do with the dynamic missions and stuff happening just generally around you that probably the missions almost will feel like a secondary part to the game because, as you say, we spent 4 hours playing the game, but probably only 2 hours of that actually doing a mission.
And each person will have a very different experience because you can go into each mission as a different character.
Yeah.
Not all missions, but certain missions you can maybe start it with either Michael or Franklin and maybe have a slightly different experience of that cutscene.
Yeah.
You can really assemble the story in slightly different ways.
Yeah, it tells the same tale but from a slightly different perspective. So again, we won't really know how much that impacts the game until we get hands-on, which is hopefully very soon. But that was certainly our first glimpse of GTA 5, and I walked away really impressed. I cannot wait to play more. So that was our first impression of Grand Theft Auto 5. Now, we will be returning to Los Santos throughout the week on IGN because we've got a week's worth of exclusives. So make sure you keep it locked on IGN.